Justice Binta Nyako of Federal High Court sitting in Abuja have withdrawn from the case of the 10th Biafra leader, Nnamdi Kanu, after the trial could not commence on Tuesday following the Biafra leader's personal confrontation with the judge for the second time this year. Nnamdi Kanu cited Nigeria's Supreme Court rulings and sections of the Nigerian laws to insist that the West Africa country lacks the legal status to prosecute him for offenses he allegedly committed in England, United Kingdom. According to Nnamdi Kanu, the 9-count charges were offenses he allegedly committed while he was in the United Kingdom, but the federal government of Nigeria has been playing smart with the case by thus always switching the locations he was when the alleged crimes were committed. Nnamdi Kanu said, before, the federal government said he committed the offenses when he was in England, but after presenting his defense in line with previous Supreme Court rulings and some sections of the Nigerian laws, the government changed the location to Nigeria. Nnamdi Kanu said, looking at the impartiality of the trial judge, Justice Binta Nyako, he cannot continue with the shenanigans of the federal government and the court, insisting, it is Nigerian law that says the court can't try him because the alleged offenses were not committed when he was in Nigeria. Nnamdi Kanu said he has already spent 4 years in the detention facility of the Department of State Services, DSS, and if he spent another 1 year in detention will not kill him waiting for the Chief Judge of the Federal Capital Territory, FCT, to reassign the case to another judge. Insisting, what matters is justice, and the law court must obey all the decisions of the Nigerian Supreme Court of Justice and stop obeying barely the ones that are against him while ignoring the ones that favored him. Nnamdi Kanu said the persecution of Igbo people will stop with him, adding, he is a freedom fighter only fighting against the continuous persecution of his people. Details of the court proceedings, as reported by Punch newspaper, reads thus. At the resumed hearing in the trial of the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, at the Federal High Court in Abuja on Tuesday, Justice Binta Nyako said she was going to recuse herself from the trial. Recuse, as defined by the law.com dictionary, means to refuse to be a judge, or for a judge to agree to a request by one of the parties to step aside in a lawsuit or appeal because of a conflict of interest or other good reason, acquaintanceship with one of the parties, for example. It also applies to a judge or prosecutor being removed. Nyako's response to recuse herself from the trial followed Kanu's request in the open court that the trial judge recuse herself from his trial since she has refused to obey the orders of the Supreme Court. Kanu is being prosecuted by the federal government on a 7-count bordering on terrorism. Kanu stated that he had lost confidence in the court and that the trial judge should recuse herself from his trial. Meanwhile, Justice Nyako replied that she would be happy to do just that. She added that she would be sending Kanu's case file back to the Chief Judge for it to be reassigned. Meanwhile, Kanu ordered his counsel, Aloy Ejimako, to sit down while he was trying to persuade the court to suspend the trial on the basis that his client was denied the opportunity to prepare his defense. Kanu referred to the Supreme Court judgment where alleged bias against the judge was raised. Sit down, I say you should sit down, Kanu had yelled at his lawyer. Speaking further, he said, My lord, I have no confidence in this court anymore, and I ask you to recuse yourself because you did not abide by the decision of the Supreme Court. I can understand it, if the DSS refuses to obey a court order. But for this court to refuse to obey an order of the Supreme Court is regrettable. I am asking you to recuse yourself from this case. The prosecution counsel, Adeboyega Awomolu, SAN, however, tried to urge Justice Nyako to proceed with the trial, but she responded that she had been minded to recuse herself from the case. I hereby recuse myself and remit the case file back to the Chief Judge, she declared. We had reported in May this year that, in a rare case in the history of legal proceedings in the world, Nnamdi Kanu, the detained leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB held himself at the Federal High Court sitting in Abuja on Monday and played the role of a lawyer with full energy and vibrant command of words. With fearless loud voice defended himself with face-to-face confrontation with the trial judge, Justice Binta Nyako, and the Federal Government Prosecution Counsel, Adegboyega Awomolu. Nnamdi Kanu, while confronting the judge, asked Justice Binta Nyako why could she be conducting his trial contrary to the provisions of the laws of Nigeria and international treaties which Nigeria is signatory to. A voice of Justice Binta Nyako could be heard in the video posted online trying to respond to Nnamdi Kanu queries, but the commanding voice and continuous marshalling of words with historical citation of facts and sections of the laws by Nnamdi Kanu suppressed the voice of the judge. The video shows Nnamdi Kanu speaking at a corridor in front of a mini office inside the courtroom where Justice Binta Nyako was inside listening and tried to respond to the detained Biafra leaders' confrontations and allegations of injustice and intimidation. Nnamdi Kanu, according to BBC, also confronted the federal government prosecution lawyer, Adegboyega Awomolu, and called him a terrorist. Kanu pointed at FG lawyer Adegboyega Awomolu and said in quote thus, "You are a terrorist. You no get power to try me." Nnamdi Kanu actions and reactions began when the trial judge, Justice Binta Nyako, denied him bail or refused to grant him house arrest. The court ruling forced Nnamdi Kanu to raise his hand and insisted of addressing the court himself. Nnamdi Kanu on Monday, after the Federal High Court sitting in Abuja dismissed his fresh bail application for him to be removed from the Department of State Service, DSS, while speaking with news reporters, said that Nigerian court seeking to try him is committing an act of terrorism. Nnamdi Kanu condemned Nigerian government for allegedly violating the provisions of Terrorism Prevention and Prohibition Act by seeking to try him. Justice Binta Nyako had on Monday dismissed Kanu's fresh application seeking the restoration of his revoked bail and his removal from the DSS custody to a house arrest or prison custody. Justice Nyako dismissed the application for lacking in merit and ruled that Kanu had brought the same application before the court. Reacting to the claim that the Supreme Court's ruling in 2023 indicating that Kanu did not jump bail, Justice Nyako said that she found, as a fact, that the IPOB leader jumped the bail granted to him earlier, and that he escaped out of Nigeria. Justice Nyako in her ruling said that the sureties who stood for Kanu in the earlier bail had applied to be discharged, and had been discharged on the ground that they could not locate Kanu and did not know his whereabouts. Justice Binta Nyako stated further that the only option left for Kanu was to go to the Court of Appeal and should proceed to the Appellate Court to exercise his right of appeal. The judge overruled the claim of Kanu's lead counsel that the Supreme Court held that the earlier bail granted him ought not to have been revoked. According to the judge, she has perused the Supreme Court judgment copy and did not see the claim by Kanu's lawyer. Helped by the ruling, Kanu said that Section 2(3)(f) of Terrorism Prevention and Prohibition Act provided that any court seeking to try him was committing an act of terrorism. Kanu insisted that he did not jump bail earlier granted to him and that no Nigerian court could try him. Terrorism Prohibition Act says I cannot be tried in Nigeria. I can never be tried in any court of law in Nigeria. That is what the law says. Anybody coming to try me is a terrorist. That is what the law says. Section 2(3)(f) of Terrorism Prevention and Prohibition Act says that any court trying to try me is committing an act of terrorism. You cannot violate a treaty that Nigeria entered into and come to try that person. It is not done anywhere in the world. That is why there is all these ridiculous delays. The Supreme Court said that I did not jump bail. My home was invaded. They came to kill me and I survived. They came to Kenya to kidnap me, brought me back to this country and seeking to try me, which the law says cannot happen. You cannot violate a treaty that Nigeria entered into and hope to stand on that illegality to conduct a trial. It is not done anywhere in the world. No exception whatsoever. Section 12 of the Constitution, Nigeria, says that any treaty ratified by Nigeria becomes a law. You cannot change it. It doesn't matter what they do. All this shenanigans is just pure rubbish. I believe in fairness and justice, Nnamdi Kanu stated in quote.
It's not going to happen. No, it won't happen. It won't happen. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen that way. It doesn't happen that way at all.
Thank you.
So these are the things that the public must understand. Most of you journalists, the legal correspondents, you don't take time to actually study some of these rulings and judgments. Go and study. In fact, I'll give you this to this lady. Yes, what is this? I'll give it to her because I think she's a bit more.
Give her the truth or judgment.
Can you hold this for me?
She can.
I want to let the whole world understand something very, very clear. In all this is the judgment of the Supreme Court. It made it very clear that even that the impartiality of the judge is questionable. And it's here. Where is it? Please do bear with me. It says it here. What is it, page? What is that again? Where it says all these things are online. Is it not page 18? All these things are online. So I suggest that the journalists in this country actually take out time to do some basic research. It's not difficult, just minor research. You will understand the vacuousness, the emptiness of all the charges against me.
Okay.
They kept switching the charges. Yes. They said I committed this crime in England, isn't it? Yes. I made a broadcast in England. Yes. And in 9 charges leveled against me, this place where I committed this crime was London, in the United Kingdom. Yes. When my lawyers came to see me, I had a discussion with them about how I'm going to defend myself. They removed it. I told them that no court in Nigeria has jurisdiction to try me. They removed that long because since this offense was committed in England, so they said it's only a UK court that can give a Nigerian court the authority to proceed, isn't it? Yeah, based on that, they removed London. Based on that, they now amended the charge again and removed London.
Location of the broadcast.
Location of the broadcast. Contrary to section 196?
174 of the Terrorism Prevention Act 2022.
In violation of their own laws. In violation of their own laws. And you want me to stand trial under such circumstances? Is that possible? Nnamdi Kanu to stand trial where these shenanigans are going on? It's not possible.
You've asked Justice Binta to recuse herself. Yes. Do you have that time on your hands for the case to go to the CEJ for it to be reassigned to another judge?
As long as justice will be done at the end of the day. That's what bothers me. For justice to be done. I cannot be tried in violation of a key provision of the Constitution of Nigeria, Section 36. It's as simple as that.
But now she's saying the part of the topic I'm making reference to was a contributory statement by one of the justices.
The Constitution of Nigeria says any determination made by the Supreme Court is binding on a lower court. So I was actually surprised that a high court have refused to obey or abide by the determination of a Supreme Court judgment.
And then take the only part that is against him and then refuse to apply the part that is in favor of it.
This cherry picking of what was contained in the Supreme Court judgment is what I'm against. Yes, it should be implemented holistically. Yes. I'm not against facing any trial. After all, I'm innocent, so they have not been against me. But there cannot be any trial when key sections of the Constitution and a key Supreme Court judgment has been violated by a court of law.
So you'll be patient for the case to go back and come back to the court?
This is my 4th year in solitary confinement in detention. The 5th year will not kill me.
Sorry, what of it is...
Well, we have many of that.
Mr. Kanu, one last question. One last question. In reference to what she has asked earlier, Justice Binta made it known that she's one of the senior judges in this court.
Yes.
What if...
And I have respect and love for her. She knows.
What if this case comes back to her? Because she said no other person...
It is not possible. It's not possible. This persecution of the Igbo people, this orchestrated, almost global persecution of the people stops with me. It cannot happen. It can never happen. That is why we do what we do. That is why I do what I do. I am campaigning for the freedom of my people because of the persecution that we are facing. It's as simple as that. Nothing more, nothing less.
Bringing you the news in a more digital way.